Hello fellow, today we're going to be talking about the Mandarin. Now, people have been sending me messages, they've been sending me emails, DMs, messenger pigeons, telegrams, phone calls, snail mail letters, you name it. They want to know what's up with these things. I've been going into the store, I've never seen them before. I want to know, are they edible? Are they safe? Should I be wary of them like the other sort of Mandarin, the yellow devil? I'm here to put those worries at ease. Hopefully I'll learn something, you'll learn something. Because we're going to be doing something a bit different, something that I haven't done in the other reviews, and that's going to be reviewing two different varieties of mandarins here. Now, for maybe you or even myself, I'm not that avid of a mandarin eater, but it's probably not going to be that important. You know, if you go into the store, they'll typically only have one kind of mandarin there. They'll have whatever's cheapest because they want to sell it as cheap as they can because they want to sell as many as possible, obviously. If you go up to the staff and you say, hey, is this an imperial mandarin? Is this an emperor mandarin? What's going on? They probably wouldn't be able to tell you. It's not that interesting. If you fed somebody you blindfolded them and you fed them a segment of Mandarin and asked them to tell you what kind of Mandarin it was, they probably couldn't tell you. I probably couldn't tell you, but maybe after this video I will be able to tell you. So we've got these two varieties. That isn't all the varieties there are, but they're the two varieties I have, so you just have to deal with it. So in my right hand here, I think this is a bigger Mandarin. I think this is an Afure Mandarin. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I think that's what it's called. It could be an Emperor Mandarin, so that's what I'm going to be calling it the rest of the video, because I don't think that's technically correct, but it's easier to pronounce and less likelihood of me making an idiot of myself. So my left hand here, this is an Imperial Mandarin. Now, first thing you're going to notice is that the Emperor one here is quite a bit larger, and what you won't notice, but I immediately will notice, is that you might notice if you go into the store and you pick up a Mandarin and you just hold it, you feel it in your hand. We'll get into it a bit later when we finally get to the tasting, but what really makes a Mandarin special, you can feel it before you've actually even done anything with it, is that the skin is loose to the edible segments, the edible flesh inside. And that's really key to what makes the Mandarin so special, so amazing. Now, that's with the bigger one. With the smaller one, the skin is very tight to the flesh, and we'll get into that a bit later. But this is an Imperial Mandarin. Those tend to be the smallest, I think. There's also the Clementine Mandarins, which are quite a similar size. Now, these are the bigger ones. I prefer the bigger ones. I feel like I'm getting more for my money, even though you pay by weight anyway. But I just like the feel of the bigger fruit in my hand. It makes me feel better about my purchase, you know. The last thing we'll get into is nutrition-wise. Do we want to be buying mandarins and eating them every day? You know, price, all of that, the usual, and why we want to be looking at a mandarin over other citrus fruit. You know, I'm just going to try and keep it focused on the mandarin because that's what this review's about. I don't want to focus too much on getting, what about oranges, what about limes, what about lemons, but why do we want to pick a mandarin over an orange, let's say? And the answer to that is really quite simple, honestly. If you've ever eaten a mandarin before, don't know if you have, but you can peel it probably with one hand, but certainly, you know, just with two. You don't need a knife. Like, let's say you go and you buy an orange. Usually you don't peel an orange unless you're trying to be really specky McGee or something, and you want to show off. You want a glacé orange or something. It's like peeling a watermelon. It's just unnecessary. But with a mandarin, you can just buy it. You can eat it straight away. It's you know, the outer skin is inedible, but it's peelable like a banana. You don't need a knife or anything to sort of tear it apart to get to the edible part. Now that in itself, it sounds very boring, it sounds very dry, but I'm going to try and explain. To those of you that haven't had a mandarin, maybe you don't know what it's like, but eating a mandarin, that's kind of, that's a side benefit really for me. Really, what's special about the Mandarin is the experience about the Mandarin. That's what we really want to be focusing on today, the Mandarin experience. Because when you peel the mandarin, it's not even like just peeling a banana, because then it's just like snap, peel, then you got the banana. With this, you know, the first push of your thumb into the top here, you get like the little hiss. If it's a good mandarin, you get like a little hiss of air, and there's just that beautiful sound of the skin peeling away from the edible parts of the mandarin. And that, it's like Christmas, you know, you're opening a present. It's beautiful. It is absolutely wonderful, and that's really what we want to be focusing on, because there's something a mandarin offers that a lot of other fruit, most other fruit, maybe all other fruit, don't really offer in the same sort of vein. So I'm gonna try and we really want to be quiet. Hopefully there's not too much background, there's not too much ambient noise, especially not at your place, not at my place. We're gonna try and be really quiet, like we're hunting rabbits, and we're gonna do like a bit of Mandarin ASMR, not in the eating necessarily, but of the peeling, because that is the really special part here. So I'm gonna lean in close to the microphone, and we'll see how we go here. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? And all I've done is just taken the top off there. That beautiful hiss of air, and you get the skin. It makes a lovely noise as it comes off, and it's just so easy. And the other thing that's beautiful about it is, you know, obviously a mandarin skin is porous, but as you take that top part off, or pierce the skin really at any point, that air pressure inside sort of escapes, and you get this lovely burst of fragrance that comes out, and that mandarin smell, that citrusy, orangey mandarin smell, is just beautiful. It's a delight for the senses, you know? And because it's so localized in that spot where you pierced it, really hammers it home. Not like cutting open a fruit, you know, where it just sort of goes everywhere. Really, it's focused on where you push your thumb in, it bursts out. It's like one of those timed air fresheners that you plug into the wall and it spurts up periodically. Really beautiful. And you know, with the thing I like about the bigger mandarins, here I've got a second one, a backup here, is that the skin is a bit further away from the actual edible part of the mandarin, whereas this is quite a bit tighter. So when you're peeling it, the likelihood that you pierce the segments with your thumb is very low in comparison to the smaller imperial, the clementine mandarin. Like, as you can see here, I mean, the segments are apart a bit, but if we just look, I mean, that is whole. There's no cuts or broken segments. That is perfect. That's as beautiful as it gets. We could practically wrap the skin back up, sell it brand new. So we're gonna do the imperial mandarin before we get to the tasting here. We're gonna lean in close again, see if we can get the same effect. Wish me luck. Oh, don't know if you heard it, but that was very similar. Obviously there's a smaller amount of air, but you still got that hiss and burst of fragrance. Really beautiful stuff. Really, that is where the whole appeal of a mandarin lies. But unfortunately, you probably can't see, but unfortunately, because the skin is so tight on the mandarin, that when this happens every time, basically, with the smaller mandarins, that right there or there, you can see my thumb's gone in, and it's just crushed that one segment because the skin is so tight. It's almost unavoidable, really. But I mean, it was all right, honestly, because you still got that burst of fragrance, and when my thumb pierced the mandarin, this geyser of juice just flooded the room, and oh, it smells beautiful in here. So we're gonna go ahead. This is really the moment we've all been waiting for, because I've never done this before. Actually, I lie. I have done this before, because I've done this video twice before, but the audio didn't record. So we're gonna do this, even though I have done it before. We're gonna pretend I've never done it before and taste test two different varieties of mandarin, Over here, the Emperor. Over here, the Imperial. See if we can taste the difference. Okay, here's the Emperor, or the Afure, going in. Gonna try not to speak too much, lest the vapors and the flavor just escape my mouth, because I just want to savor it as long as possible. But this is the smaller Imperial Mandarin going in. Alright, okay, so the first thing, it's immediately noticeable. The larger Emperor or Afure Mandarins, completely seedless. Now in this age of convenience and genetic modification, you know, seeds in fruit increasingly unwanted. People, they don't like them, you know. You can swallow the seeds; they're perfectly edible. You can swallow apple seeds, watermelon seeds, mandarin seeds. It doesn't matter. But, cherry seeds, but people they want the convenience, you know. So if you go into a store, just as an example, when cherries are in season, beautiful, lovely red cherries, and people will pick up a one or two just to try. You may walk around the store after they've put up the box of cherries, or the however many cherries it may be, and you'll find just cherry pips that people just spit out onto the floor or into other displays or into the fridge, and it's very inappropriate, I would say. The seeds, to me, in the Imperial, the smaller Mandarin, there's not many. There's maybe one or two per segment, if that. You know, there's not many at all. But if you're the kind of person that really objects to seeds or pips in your fruit, you might want to avoid it. The other thing with the seeds is, if you happen to bite down, or maybe you chew on the seeds, they can be quite bitter. You know, the seeds, unlike a pomegranate, they're not the object of what we're actually looking to eat. What we want is the fruit itself. So if you happen to bite down or chew on the seeds, it can give the fruit quite a bitter aftertaste, and that's something you probably want to avoid. I don't find it particularly pleasant. So if you don't like seeds at all, you want to go for the bigger Mandarin. Second thing, I mean, when you go in for mandarins, at least in my experience, quite often they'll have a tasting bowl out, because mandarins, as you can see, the other thing that makes them quite lovely is not just the peeling itself, but how they just break apart into nice bite-sized segments. I mean, as you're probably quite aware. So what a lot of stores will do is they'll have a bowl out or something with just mandarin segments, because they're probably the easiest fruit in the world to just peel apart and peel into nice bite-sized pieces and leave out for people to try. So taste-wise, if I really had to think about it, I would say the bigger Mandarin, the Afora Mandarin, is a bit sweeter, and the Imperial Mandarin is a touch more sour. Oftentimes, it'll happen that if you get a particularly large piece of fruit, the taste is a bit more spread out. It's a bit more diluted, and when you get a smaller piece of fruit, it's more concentrated. But I think that's something that only really applies into fruit strains itself. So if you have like a really big apple and a really small apple, but seeing as these are two different strains of mandarins entirely, I don't think that really applies. The taste is very subtly different. You know, you'll still notice that they taste very much like Mandarin. You know, it's very subtle. It's not like the difference between a navel orange and a blood orange, for example. If you've never had a Mandarin before, it's very difficult, as it is with anything, for me to really explain what the taste is like to you. Now, there are different kinds of oranges. Oranges and mandarins are going to be like the thing that you'll be most inclined to compare them to. Oranges being, you know, the most common citrus fruit, I would say, and most similar in terms of taste. I mean, these are called, the other term for them is a Mandarin orange. So oranges, there are different kinds of oranges. So you have, you know, oranges for juicing. The two most common types would be, at least as far as I'm aware, Valencias and Navels. And those are a bit more sour. I mean, you don't have to think about when you're eating an orange. If you just want to think about the taste, if you've ever had real fresh, you know, not made from concentrated orange juice, it's much more sour. You know, mandarins are quite sweet. If you remember, I talked in the carrot review about when I was younger and I wanted to cut down on eating confectionery. I would go for, whenever I got the craving, let's say for some chocolate, I would go and have a piece of fruit instead. Now, if you're gonna do that, as I did, if you're really feeling like something really sweet or something, you know, with a lot of sugar, let's say like a fudge or marshmallows or Rocky Road or something like that, you're not going to say to yourself, gee, instead of eating that Rocky Road, instead of eating that chocolate brownie, I think I'll go and have a grapefruit instead, because grapefruit aren't sweet. You know, they're astonishingly bitter. So the point I'm trying to make here is to replace, when people think of a sweet fruit, mandarin is really right up there. It's very, very sweet. It's almost ideal for juicing, really. You don't see mandarin juice. You do see mandarin lemonade, and that tastes quite nice when I've had it. And that sort of brings me to my next point, because mandarins, they're very sweet. The whole experience of peeling them is very enjoyable, but what do they have to offer us nutritionally? Now, mandarins, they contain a lot of water, but not a lot of vitamins and nutrients, you know. An orange, obviously vitamin C is the biggest one, but it contains a lot more vitamins and nutrients. This, you get some vitamin C, not much else. So there are a lot of fruits and vegetables that I eat every day, for example, that are there because I want to hit some nutritional quota, right? So to make sure my body runs well. Mandarins are not one of those. Mandarins are something that I'll go, and if they're cheap, I'll say, oh, mandarins, I could really go for a mandarin. I haven't had one in a while. I enjoy eating mandarin. They're not something I really want to be eating for nutritional. Now, that's not to say they're unhealthy. You know, you're not going to eat like 20 mandarins in a day and then just keel over and die and get diabetes. Of course not. But I'm just trying to say they're not as nutritionally beneficial as other fruit. Now, in saying that, they are consistently one of the most cheapest fruits around when they're in season. They are consistently one of the cheapest fruits that I can buy when I go to the store. Very cheap. So that's one of those sort of things you have to balance out for yourself. You know, whenever I go to the store, I see the mandarins. They're very cheap. They taste good. So it's not a big deal. You know, I'm not going to be eating them every day, but they're not high calories. Not going to make you ill. They're not going to hurt your wallet. That sort of thing. So we've covered the difference between the two types of mandarins. Why we choose a mandarin, I think, over all the other fruit we could have. I think that might just be about it. I don't really have much else to say about the mandarin, but I really want to emphasize that mandarins, while they do taste quite nice, you know, I do like a good mandarin. What really drives it home for me is the whole experience of just breaking it open and peeling it, and it comes out in such beautiful segments, and they're so perfectly sized to eat, you know, a beautiful smell. It's the whole package, you know. It's not just about getting the food, getting the vitamins, just getting them into your body. It's like a present, and it's a beautiful snack, and it's cheap and inexpensive. Why not pick yourself up a mandarin next time you see one? For the mandarins, I'll be going for, it's for the big ones, because these are definitely my favorite. You know, full disclosure, I have had both different kinds of mandarins before, and more, you know. So this is my first time tasting either of these kind of mandarins. This is my first time even comparing them. So I will just let you know in advance, I have tried them, and I always prefer the bigger mandarin. It makes me feel like I'm getting more for my money, you know, when I buy a bigger piece of fruit, even though they don't charge me per mandarin. Still makes me feel better about my purchase, you know. So in saying that, for the bigger mandarin, I'm feeling, I'd say like let's say a 7.7. For the smaller mandarin, oof, you know, I don't want to go below 7, but I think I might have to, because it's just, I'm not a fan of how tight the skin is, you know, to the rest of the mandarin. You know, there's just a bit more convenience in the fact that the bigger mandarin's seedless. All those things considered, all put together, I have to go for 6.9. Not a bad rating, you know. If you got 6.9 out of 10, should feel proud. Still, all things considered, if you have the choice, I'd go for the bigger mandarin myself. That's about it. Mandarins, you know, all in all, pretty good. I wouldn't turn down one if you offered me one. What more of an endorsement do you need, really? Pretty beautiful, fragrant, just all round a great package. That's not something you can say for a lot of other fruit. You know, if somebody gives you an apple, you don't get the whole experience of breaking open an apple and smelling it. You just bite into it. But with a mandarin, it's so much more. It's so much more. So I'm going to leave it off with that. Next video, maybe eggplant. That is next on the list, but I'll have to give it a think about how I'm going to do that. If it's not eggplant, probably pineapple. But we'll see. I'm sure you will also see, hopefully. I'm sorry that this got out so late. I did record it 2 previous times, but the audio didn't pick up. So hopefully we have a bit of better luck this time. I'll catch you later with either eggplant or pineapple. Enjoy.